Hello, bonjour, namaste, ni hao, and ohio, everybody. What is going on? It is Gail right here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel once again for another Danmachi video. And today we're going to be doing a community reaction to Danmachi's Volume 18 that was released a little bit over a week ago. And of course, I'm going to be using my video, which I released under a week ago, where I spoke about my early initial thoughts on Danmachi Volume 18 as a basis for this video. I'm going to be going through the comments and I'm going to be replying to you guys and seeing what you guys have had to say about the volume, your thoughts on it, and kind of like responding to you guys as well at the same time, because while I have replied to some of your comments already in this video, I feel like I've not done a good enough job in replying to every single person, right? And of course this video can help me do that, basically, because rather than writing walls of text, I can basically vocalize it to you guys and talk about this volume once again, especially now that we have more information from the light novel, right? The translators have been hard at work. They've been, doing a fantastic job so far, right? So we're going to be taking their information and basically kind of adding on to this video, basically. So if you guys go on to enjoy this video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. We're nearly at 1,000 subscribers. We just hit 900 today, and it has been an amazing feeling. So let's get to 1,000 and make it sensational. And of course, leave a comment down below on some of the new stuff that we have been we have been given, basically some of the new information that we've been given. Do you guys think it's fine? Do you guys think that you still need to wait for the light novel properly to get a better understanding of what exactly goes down? And what do you think about it in total? Like, do you think that what's happening in the light novel is fair? Because I know some people have issues with it, some people are fine with it. Has it changed your opinion on the light novel? I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say down below in the comments. Now, before we get in, of course, two things I want to mention before we start reading through the comments of this video is that, one, this is a spoiler video. So when we talk about this, when we talk about the light novel, we are going to be delving into spoilers. So if you're an anime only, or if you're not interested in knowing anything about Volume 18 spoilers, leave the video. You can come back at a later date and watch it once again, once you've read Volume 18, or you've caught up to the light novels, or whatever it may be. You want to read the spoiler stuff, you can come check this video out. Otherwise, of course, if you are already caught up and you want to see this video, hey, be my guest. You can continue to watch this video, of course. I'm going to be putting spoiler tags in the title and stuff like that, so don't worry. None of you guys will get spoiled. It'll be very obvious. I mean, this disclaimer should be obvious enough as long as you don't skip over it. But yeah, the second thing I want to mention is that when you're talking about stuff in the comment section, or you're replying to me, or you're replying to somebody else, more so anybody else, I don't really care, to be quite honest, if you're aggressive to me. But others, remember, everybody has feelings, everybody has a different perspective. Don't be harsh on them. Don't be arrogant, don't be rude, don't be insulting. Just keep it civil, keep it make it a friendly argument, friendly discussion, not an argument, friendly discussion, and have fun, man. We all love Danmachi over here. Let's have fun talking about it. That's all that I want from this channel, to be quite honest, is having fun talking about Danmachi. This is the reason I made this channel, in all honesty, all right? So be sure to do that. It would be amazing. Okay, let's talk about your comments then, shall we? Let's start off with the first one I have here from Mecha Boy 02. There we go. Got there in the end, inevitably. I really want to see the full English translation soon. There are several things that have my attention. One, will Hestia Familia grow larger aside from Ryu joining, because they have been small for a while? Okay, let's start off with point one now. I do think the Hestia Familia will grow larger. I definitely do believe that. I think they won't grow extremely large. I know some people are expecting them to have like hundreds of members because they need the quantity and stuff. I don't think they'll get to that point ever, to be quite honest. I think Amori is going to keep them at around maybe 10 to 15 maximum. In all honesty, I don't see them growing more than that. And I do believe, especially with the aftermath of this volume, I expect to see a couple of members being added in that format as well, potentially. We'll have to see in Volume 19. And speaking of Volume 19, it's the same thing with Ryu. We know that there has been some stuff about a side story where she is joining Hestia Familia, right? But I want to see what they do in Volume 19 with Ryu. Is she just going to be like just there, chilling and vibing, basically, in the Hostess of Fertility, and being sort of like an add-on member to the Hestia Familia, basically? Or is she actually going to be a full-fledged Hestia Familia member? We'll have to wait and see, of course. It's going to be very interesting, to say the least. I'm very excited to see where they take Ryu, in all honesty. where they take Ryu, where Omori Sensei takes Ryu, I should say. And yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun in that regards for sure. 2, will Hestia Familia double time their progress in the dungeon? Because Loki Familia is quite ahead. Hestia needs to keep up. I think more so than that, I think the Hestia Familia is predominantly more so overworld based. I mean, if you look at their stories and arcs, I mean, we've only had one truly major arc in the dungeon, and that was volumes 12 to 14. Of course, we obviously had, technically volumes 9 to 11 with the Xenoses. There was the dungeon involved in some way, shape, or form, but it wasn't really about exploration. And of course, volumes 1 to 5 had to have some exploration because it was the start of the story. They had to get to that point basically to show growth and development. I think right now, of course, especially with the Education District arc being the next arc, it definitely seems like the Hestia Familia is more of a track on being basically more of like an overworld Familia when it comes to the storytelling experience. But at the same time, we will see them being in the dungeon in some way, shape, or form through maybe like Sword Oratoria. Maybe we might hear about it through Sword Oratoria potentially, or we might see it happen a little bit here and there in the upcoming volumes. But I do believe there will be an inevitable volume where we do see them going even deeper than they have right now. But I think the Loki Familia and Sword Oratoria's focus is on the dungeon anyway. So I think Mori Sensei is taking advantage of that and doing other things with the Hestia Familia basically. That's at least my perspective of it, and that's how I believe Omori Sensei is tackling this. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm very curious to see how much of the dungeon we will even see in the Education District arc, because it does seem like it's going to be a focus on the overworld once again. So we'll have to wait and see. 3, will this passive skill Bell get any practical use? Because he keeps getting skills that only activate in certain conditions. Oxlair, we know that, of course, right? As an example. So he's obviously talking about Tavares, right? And it's one of those abilities that cannot be used day to day, as he says, because it requires charm activation, basically, in order to get an advantage from it. Again, this is where I think the growth of the Hestia Familia potentially might help if they get a member that can provide charm abilities. Could come in handy, right? We'll have to wait and see again on that front, because it does seem a little bit weird that Omori Sensei is giving all these weird skills to Bell, basically. Liaris Freeze is probably his most useful skill at this point, right? And then if you look at the other skills like Oxlair and stuff like that, it's kind of like, but couldn't you have given him something a little bit better than that, I mean, Oxlair is still going to be very, very useful, especially when we do get the inevitable rematch between Bell and Astreus, right? But yeah, it does seem a little bit weird nonetheless, especially considering the grand battle at the end is the one-eyed black dragon, right? So that's something to bear in mind. Okay, 4, what is this Education District arc that's going to happen next for Volume 19? Well, the Education District arc, from my understanding and my perspective, is that it's either going to focus on one of 2 characters, and I'm leaning towards one more so than the other. The one that I'm leaning towards more so is that it's going to be focused on Aina. We know that Aina and Lafia are both based from come from the Education District, from my understanding, from my memory as well, at least. They both are from the Education District. And I think there may be more of an, once again, this is something Omori Sensei has been doing for the last couple of arcs, is that he's been focusing on Bell and then a certain female character in the series. Volume 6 was Lily, 7 was Haruhime, 9 to 11 was technically the Xenoses, so it was a little bit of an off one, but he technically had eyes there as well, and her thoughts on Bell effectively rebelling, in a way. We obviously had Wine as well, technically, between 9 to 11, so you can count Wine, I suppose, in that. Then 12 to 14, we had Ryu, right? And then volume 16 to 18 has been Freya. So far, each arc has Bell, and then of course a predominant female character, a female character that's going to be the protagonist for that arc. So I think Aina makes sense, right? We haven't seen much of Aina in the last couple of novels, last couple of volumes. We have seen her, but not extensively, right? So it makes sense to revisit Aina potentially in some way, shape, or form. The other character that I was potentially thinking about was Lafia. We know that in Sword Oratoria 13, she's going on her own way, especially after the events of Volume 12. She's still part of the Loki family and stuff, but she's doing something else entirely. She's cut her hair and stuff like that. So it's going to be very interesting to see which character we're going to be focusing on in the upcoming Volume 19 arc. I'm very curious. It's going to be very interesting to say the least, and I'm excited for it, for sure. Okay, I knew Ryu skipped to level 5 and went straight to 6 before you even said it. I don't have an issue with it. Hell, I was hoping that it would happen. It makes sense because she hasn't had an update in 5 years, and think of all the Exilia she's gained in that time. She was just sitting on all of it until her update. Not to mention she was already close to being level 5 when she stopped adventuring. I want to read through some of these comments because I know a lot of people have this issue. And Blanc also says at the very bottom here that I knew Ryu would skip to level 6. It's too obvious that she accumulates a lot of Exilia for those years. Okay, and damn, Ryu versus Ice would be very interesting. Definitely, I'm very, very curious to see what a Ryu versus Ice fight would look like, to be quite honest. Alright, let's see this now. It doesn't really make sense. I spent 3 years to reach level 5 from level 4, and she's constantly in the dungeon. Gareth and Finn have been level 6 for 7 years, and Riveria has been level 6 for 6 years, despite all of them being constantly in the dungeon and doing expeditions. If leveling up was that easy, all of those 3 should have been level 7 or 8 at this point. Now, okay, so the reasoning that's been given basically in the light novel at this point in time is that she accumulated a lot of high grade Exilia in order to basically get those level ups effectively. That's our understanding of it now. Now, I understand what Tom is saying here. I absolutely agree. There is sort of like a semi convenience plot point going on here. But at the same time, I also get the perspective of how Ryu managed to get a double level up. She was, like Ethan said, she was extremely close to level 5 already, right? At the time she was, at the time of the Rudra Familia incident, basically, and the Ashreya Familia's demise, effectively, right? We can call it a demise. I mean, most 90% of the Familia died, basically. 99%, I would say, even. You could make an argument and say that. But 99% of the Ashreya Familia effectively died, and she was the only one left. And you're nearly at level 5. You then effectively split from Astrea for a while. Astrea goes on her own way. Ryu stays in Orario to take revenge and everything of that sort, right? And she's close to level 5. Now, if we go over some of the achievements and the feats that she has achieved over the last couple of months of Danmachi's timeline, and just generally what she's achieved since that Rudra Familia incident, first and foremost, she defeated the Rudra Familia. I'm pretty sure she didn't get a status check after that incident, right? So she didn't get her status updated after that incident. So one Rudra Familia incident. So we've got that one fight, basically. Now, we don't know how much she would have gained from that fight, but let's say she got a decent amount. That was the feat she needed to get to level 5, right? So that's one. Two, after that, let's say she's done a lot of the events in between, episode Ryu stuff and whatnot comes in between, the seer hostess of fertility stuff, yada yada yada, all that jazz goes down. Then you have, of course, Belle Crenel's entry into Orario. You obviously have the Goliath fight, of course, which she was helping in. Of course, you have the Apollo War Games she was helping in. Again, a lot of times she's helping out Belle. You can tell a pattern is forming here. Then you obviously have the Xenos incident where she helped out again a little bit. And then, of course, you have the Juggernaut incident, which is obviously a significant incident, right? I can see why, obviously, she has been able to do that, with especially being close to being level 5 already from the get-go, before the whole situation went down. And then, of course, getting to level 6 because of the Juggernaut incident, let's say. And then all the events that happen in between. Maybe she's been training here and there a little bit, here and there, practicing, training up a little bit. You've got 5 years, basically, of nothing, no status updates, no checks, nothing whatsoever. And we've never had that in Danmachi. Even our other adventurers like Eyes, Riveria, Gareth, Loki, Finn. Sorry, all part of the Loki Familia. They've been able to get their status updated regularly, right? Whereas Ryu for the last 5 years has basically not been able to do so. So in that sense, I think it makes sense because we've never had this situation where a adventurer has not been able to get their status updated for a multitude of years, right? So maybe in that regards, it does make sense. I think there is a blend of, yes, it makes sense, but it also kind of doesn't make sense when you look at it in relation to other characters in the series, right? Especially when you consider people like Eyes, Gareth, Finn, Riveria. And you can also make an argument for Ryu as well, maybe in a way, whereas all these characters that we spoke about, Ryu, not Ryu, Eyes, Gareth, Finn, Riveria, all of these characters are going and doing expeditions in groups, so there's no real big solo achievement from anybody in that group basically, right? Whereas Ryu, of course, has a couple of solo achievements, of course, defeating the entirety of the Rudra Familia on her own. Then you obviously have the Juggernaut fight where, yes, she obviously fought alongside Bell, but it was only the two of them against one of the strongest monsters in the dungeon. Again, it's still kind of iffy in my personal opinion. I'm still a little bit hesitant to be like, okay, I'm all for it and I'm down for it, but I can make a reasoning out of it which makes sense in my head, and that's fine for me. At least it could be a little bit of headcanon for sure. But yeah, I'm curious to see what you guys have to say about that. What do you guys think about that theory? I know a lot of people may not feel the same way, right? Definitely most people may not feel the same way, but I'm curious to see what you guys have to say down below in the comments. Okay, let's read this. Mad Cat is amazing, by the way. I love this dude, by the way. I don't know you really that well, but I've seen your comments a lot of the times. You entertain me so much by keeping a good discussion, in all honesty. And me and Mad Cat have a different opinions quite drastically usually. Our perspectives are quite different all the time, so it's always fun to read his comments. So in all honesty, it's always fun. All right, let's read this. Keeping Loki out is a very tough sell for me. A limited presence, maybe 3 or 4 level 6s and a similar ratio of 4s and below, I could probably handle. But I think Aiz and Tiona would rebel if forbidden to fight. Okay, let's address the Loki situation. And I know a lot of people will probably talk about this in the rest of the comments as well. So let's get that straight up and, straight out of the way basically by talking about it. So effectively, even I wasn't too sure about this. I would have agreed with Mad Cat if it was me before Volume 18 released, in all honesty. After Volume 18 released and we got a little bit more information about why they weren't participating, because I actually got a leak apparently that the Loki Familia weren't going to be participating in the Volume 18 fight a couple of days before the release of the light novel actually, and I was like, okay, that's a bit shocking to me because I don't see how Hestia Familia can win otherwise, but the Loki Familia, the reason why they weren't allowed to fight makes a lot more sense when you actually read as to why they weren't allowed. I don't agree with it in the sense of like, it does make the plot of the fight, kind of plot armory basically. It makes it very convenient and it makes the fight in favor of Hestia Familia's team very rigged, right? But I think when it comes to the explanation as to why they didn't fight, it does make sense, in all honesty, especially because a lot of members of the Loki Familia were actually rebelling, in all honesty. Mad Cat is on the right track. They actually were rebelling. I know in the description of these spoilers that apparently Bet was going to argue with Riveria, and a lot of other Loki Familia members were really annoyed with the Freya Familia because of the whole charming situation that happened in Volume 17, right? And so Finn had a very hard decision to make, because one side, the guild, was basically saying you cannot fight, because the idea of the guild was, and the reason why the guild was saying they can't fight is because one, it would be basically Loki Familia versus Freya Familia rather than Hestia Familia versus Freya Familia. Two, they didn't want any casualties. Even though the war games are usually designed to basically have no casualties, the guild knew that if the Loki Familia were allowed to fight against the Freya Familia, there would be casualties, and that's something they do not want to happen, especially because the guild's objective, more so than anything else, rather than these petty squabbles and anything of that sort, they want to make sure that all the adventurers are alive in order to fight against the one-eyed black dragon. And that is the reason Royman gives to Finn, basically saying like, we cannot afford this. We cannot afford to lose any more adventurers in petty squabbles like this. And effectively, along with that, they also added the fact that, if the Loki Familia doesn't participate and you have all these lower ranked adventurers fighting in this battle, they can get a chance to level up and stuff through this fight, basically. So the guild has their own agenda and their own motives, which makes sense in the grand scheme of things. In the overarching plot, it does make sense. But on the other hand, you of course want, the rest of the familia to fight and stuff like that. Now, of course, Finn was still deliberating and stuff like that, but then effectively Finn did get bribed by the fact that the guild has information on the lower floors 60 and below, basically because they have information from the past, from when Zeus and Hera's familiars were expeditioning, effectively. Is that even a word? When they were doing their expeditions in the lower floors. So Finn effectively got bribed at the end of the day. He did get bribed, but that doesn't mean they didn't participate in the fight. Anyways, we had Tiona and Tiona training Bell, preparing him and helping him adjust to being level 5, right? We had Finn training Lily in, commanding a battalion effectively, along with providing information on the Freya Familia. So there is that factor as well, that the Loki Familia still did help in some way, shape, or form, which is good, of course. And I think overall, right, in terms of the overall fight, I think it was actually pretty good and well handled by Amori Sensei, now that I'm thinking about it. Apparently they managed to get, like, I think it was around 800 Familia members in total to go up against the Freya Familia, who only had like 150 combatants. They had like 5,000 non-combatants, but they only had 150 fighters, basically. So you were basically dealing with an 8:1 in favor of the Hestia Familia. 8:1 sort of like outmatched fighters. And even though they were lower leveled, I mean, at the end of the day, if there's eight individuals up against one individual, it does make a difference, right? So there is also that factor as well, that they had a lot of Familia members fighting for it, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, we can check out the wiki if I'm not mistaken. Let me check if we had a yeah, there are over 800 people from 47 Familias participating in this war game. Dan Sect is not participating, Ganesha is not participating, and I think they said that the Freya Familia is basically like around 157 or something. So if we I don't know if we can find the exact count for the Freya Familia, but let's say Freya Familia is around 150 to maybe 200. So even a 4:1 or 8:1 ratio, basically, I mean, it does make it seem a lot more significant like that, but you know what I mean, right? There is a significant difference in the number of fighters on each side. The Hestia Familia side is way larger than the Freya Familia side. Okay, I should have told Freya to stop that favor. It should be null and void after charming eyes without her consent. Well, the thing is, it's not just from Freya. And one more, well, first and foremost, I don't think you can tell Freya to stop the favor, considering she's a goddess. I don't think necessarily that would go down extremely well. But the other thing was, the reason why is basically it wasn't even from Freya technically. It was partially from Freya, but Ottar was basically one of the main people giving, in control of that favor, I would assume, right? So basically, as you guys can see here, basically, Ottar told her that she could go back on their agreement. Eyes hesitated and asked if that she would be really okay, to which Ottar responded and told her that a sword that could not withhold an oath would one day be sure to become dull and shatter. So, I mean, I can see that as well. I think Ottar, gave her a sort of like a good lesson in that regards for sure. But even then, if let's say Eyes decided that, stuff that favor, and went on to help Belle, I think the other issue is that if Bell were to find out about that favor, which he would, let's be real, I don't think the story would allow for him to not know about that favor. He would immediately tell Eyes to not help him, effectively. I genuinely believe that, because at the end of the day, the idea of this war games and the idea of Bell basically through this entire fight was, and this entire arc was to save Freya, basically, right? That was the whole agenda, especially in this arc and this ending volume, effectively, was to save Freya from herself, effectively, right? So I think that's another reason why Bell would immediately reject it. So even if Eyes were to stuff that favor, I think Bell would have rejected it. And I guess it also makes sense regarding like the lesson that Ottar taught Eyes in regards to the whole sword becoming not withholding the oath and stuff like that. That's also there. So there is a couple of things there. We spoke about the double level up, so I'm not going to talk about it too much, but yeah, I understand why it's I wouldn't say it's super shady. It just seems very convenient is what I think it is. I think shady is a little bit of a harsh word there, to be quite honest. Belle's news super specific. Yep, we talked about that. Tavares, I don't know what's happening. Freya is immoral and narcissistic. I know you like her, but her actions, especially the elf tribes and the threats to Hestia to kill her Familia, are not justifiable. Once you cross certain lines, you moved into evil territory. Redemption, let me see if I can highlight only this, please. Thank you. There we go. Redemption may or may not be possible, but the person has to be willing to atone, like Jalel and Ottar in Fairy Tale. Up to this point, she has shown no desire and even regretting not taking Hermes and Hestia down in 17. Her wants take precedence and damn anyone else, including the boy she loves, as if he'd be happy if his friends were dead or Hestia was sent back. I understand this point for sure. It's not like I don't reject it at all. I know that Freya has done a lot of bad, especially the elf tribe stuff was horrible, right? But the thing is, right, when your wants take precedence, I think we can talk about a lot of other gods and goddesses that have done that in Danmachi period. I mean, of course, we've seen it in other stories as well. But even in Danmachi, I mean, let's be real. I mean, Freya is one half of it, but taking out the Zeus and Hera familiars at their lowest point just because you wanted to be the strongest. Loki isn't a nice god either, let's be real. And then if you look at Hermes and his actions in volumes 9 to 11, even though it was to help Belle, it wasn't really the nicest things to do in that novel as well, in that series of novels. So at the end of the day, a lot of these gods and goddesses are here for their entertainment. And of course, in the case of Freya, it went a step further. We could definitely say that 100%. But of course, now a lot of people will feel that she's been let off, in a way, because she's allowed to, completely, stay in Orario for free. She hasn't been sent back to heaven. None of that stuff has happened. But her familia has been disbanded. She's no longer Freya, technically. She's just Seer at this point. So in a way, she has been saved from herself because Freya no longer exists effectively. There is nobody called Freya. Freya is effectively dead for now, at least, right? I do believe she will come back in the future potentially, especially towards the end of the series, right, as in order to prepare for the one-eyed black dragon. But I think at this point there is no Freya effectively. Freya is dead and dusted effectively based on what's happened at the end, so we'll have to wait and see for sure. It is just a slap unless she understands. That said, I'm mostly fine with her staying as Seer, but it is just a slap on the wrist. Unless she understands all of what she did was wrong and truly wants to atone, forgiveness should be withheld. Well, we don't know exactly what's the situation. I mean, she said she was going to leave completely fine. She was going to go into exile. She told her familia that she was going to disband. I know that the Freya familia was actually saying not to disband, asking not to be disbanded, right? The members of the Freya familia were asking not to be disbanded. But I think with Freya basically saying, you guys need to be disbanded, it's over, I'm gonna go into exile basically. Belle is the only reason why. Belle, Ryu, and everybody wanting her to remain as Seer more so than anything else. Again, like I said, it removes her identity. She's no longer Freya. She's only Seer. And of course, I think she's taking her time to atone effectively, I assume, by effectively remaining as Seer and doing good from here on out. That's at least my guess. We'll have to wait and see, of course. But that's at least the direction I feel it's going to go. I really hope the Cat and Broom brother, the Gullivers and Alan will probably get a bit of an attitude adjustment, especially depending on the familiar they're going in, for sure. I was driving while I was listening with slick roads. Hopefully you've stayed safe. Mad Cat, hopefully you were safe while driving. I know I missed a few things. Why did Hayden fight with Belle? Basically, Hayden wanted to fight with Belle, and so did Hegni. So we've learned that Hegni or Hogni, depending on the pronunciation you're going with. Hegni is, of course, in Danmachi Memoria Freese. Hogni is what the light novels actually state. But Hayden and Hogni both fought alongside Belle, basically because they felt that Belle would be able to save Freya effectively. So they effectively betrayed Freya in order to help her, basically, to help her from going deeper into the evilness that she was going to go down the route of, basically, right? So that was it. What was Belle's final attack on Ottar again? Some type of punch and firebolt? Yes, basically some type of punch and firebolt. It was a new magic ability along with that punch, basically. So if you go down over here, we can see exactly what the name was called. If we look at it, 1 second. Let me just type punch, maybe. Punch would probably help us. Obviously, we also had Mia and stuff like that. Grand Bell Punch plus Firebolt. There you go. So that it was a combination of those two. So yeah, definitely very cool. And obviously it didn't defeat Otaro, right? It just brought him down to his knees basically for 5 minutes. He only got 5 minutes to effectively wrap up the war games. Otherwise Otaro would get back up effectively, which kind of makes more sense. It doesn't seem like, oh, Otaro got straight up beat. It was just getting him on his knees, which is insane. It just shows how strong Otaro is, even, when he went up against effectively well, 3 level 7s, 1 level 6, and he himself had beastification to basically get to level 8 at the start of level 8 effectively. It's insane. It's insane how strong Otaro is, man. Honestly, so strong. If the next volume doesn't touch upon the disbandment of 5,000 large familiars, I'm gonna be mad. Since the founding of the Hestia Familia, Ishtar, Apollo, and now Freya Familia have disbanded, where the heck are those adventurers? Well, we know that the adventurers have been spread out thinly across all familiars, right? Ishtar, we've seen Aisha go to the Hermes Familia. Apollo, we've seen Cassandra and Daphne join the Miak Familia. So I do believe all these adventures that have disappeared or spread out have gone to different familiars. We've seen obviously Hyacinthus left with Apollo, right? So we know where he's gone. We'll have to wait and see where the Freya Familia members have gone, right? So yeah, and I assume there's a lot of adventures outside of Orario as well, under Poseidon potentially, under various other potential familiar heads. We don't know which gods and goddesses are outside of Orario that we still haven't heard about. Athena, for example, potentially, right? So we still have a lot of familiars to actually look forward to. I think there's going to be a lot of familiars to see as well, maybe through Danmachi Memoria Freese or through the main series Sword Oratory or something like that. So we'll have to wait and see. I would say it again, even if Belle confesses that to Aiz at level 6, she will reject it. She can only love someone that defeats OEBD, her hero. Most likely she will be confused about her feelings. At the point of time she doesn't know Belle will be her hero. Yeah, I think we're just starting to see the development of it more so than I think this chapter or this volume, I should say, focused a lot on Belle and Aiz, I would say, right? Even though we did get a confession from Ryu in this volume, it has been confirmed that Ryu had confessed to Belle. So we'll have to wait and see on that front how that goes down. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how it develops from here. I don't think we're going to see a confession anytime soon, even from Belle, to be quite honest, because he's still got a ways to go. He's still got a level to reach to Aiz, and I assume Aiz will get to level 7 inevitably, right? So there's still a lot to consider and lot to dissect before that even happens, I think. I'm curious about what the next arc will be. Maybe Belle versus Astrea or Hestia's Familia second expedition. Belle versus Astreus. I assume he means Astreus, not Astreus. Astrea. I don't think he means Astrea. I was like, Astrea? Why would he go up against Astrea? But no. I could see the second expedition, but yeah, like we said, we know that the education district arc is the next arc, so we'll have to wait and see. It hasn't been my favorite arcs. The motivation of gods and goddesses are hard to understand, and I miss the dungeon action. Yeah, I've realized this. A lot of people prefer the dungeon action, and of course, because the series is based around the dungeon, you would assume that there's going to be more of a dungeon thing, right? But yeah, and of course, the motivations of gods, goddesses, what they like doing, what they don't like doing. I mean, Hermes is the perfect example. From volumes 9 to 11, we genuinely thought he was a villain at one point, but then we realized he's good. Then, of course, we know from Sword Oratory 11 and 12 with certain gods. I'm not gonna... I would spoil it, but I don't want to spoil it in case people haven't read Sword Oratory, So I'm not gonna spoil anything about Sword Oratory here, but yeah, it's something to note, man. It's gonna be very interesting to see what happens and what these gods and goddesses are up to be quite honest. I was hoping Aiz would play a bigger role in War Game, but I'm glad Ryu was the one who came out of nowhere and saved the day. She was such a badass in the novel. For sure, I love Ryu, man. Ryu, they did a fantastic job with Ryu, like I said. I love what they did with Ryu. A little bit convenient, to say the least, but really enjoyable nonetheless. My question is, what is going to happen with Freya members? Maybe Hedney and Hogni, Heath and Ottar might join Hestia fam, but others unknown. We'll have to wait and see. To be honest, there's so many familiar members in the Freya Familia that are significant, right? You have Alan. I mean, it would be amazing if Alan becomes a waitress for the Hostess of Fertility alongside Anya. It would be hilarious. Honestly, sign me up on that one. No, it'll be ridiculous. But no, I don't think that's gonna happen. It'll be very interesting to see. I could see Herin and maybe Hogni joining Hestia Familia. I don't know about the others necessarily. We'll have to wait and see. This was hoping for a golden opportunity to have the Hestia Familia and Loki Familia work together against the Freya Familia that wasted it. I was hoping for a cool tag team moments of Ryu and Ice. I still think that's possible. The tag team of Hestia Familia and Loki Familia is going to be the end game anyways, right? I do believe that. But I think, yes, was it wasted? You could make an argument and say that, right? You can make an argument and say that it was a little bit wasted. So we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to just wait and see. To me, she should have just ranked up. Okay, so we have obviously the fights happening here, the possible fights here, I should say. I don't really like the stuff with Ryu. To me, she should have just ranked up to level 5 and joined the Hestia Familia, because it felt in the Expedition arc it was building up for Ryu to join the Hestia Familia. I swear it's still building up for Ryu to join the Hestia Familia. I don't understand why Omori-sensei just doesn't do it, to be quite honest. If he gets it done, it's over, man. That's one arc done and dusted, basically. But yeah. It's ridiculous to break the rules he set up with. Well, we don't know exactly the exact rules because, again, like I said, this is the first time we've seen anybody getting a status update in 5 years, basically. We've never seen a status update not happen in a long time. From my memory, at least. I don't remember this ever happening. So we'll have to wait and see, again, in exactly how it works and stuff when we actually get the light novels in our hands. I hate that they disbanded the Freya Familia. The punishment should have them going into the dungeon often and pay a ton load of money for compensation, because they were strongest. They need all the power they can get to fight the one-eyed black dragon. But yeah, this is I don't always agree with you, but on most of this I really do. Okay, so they had a little bit of a discussion and communication regarding the thing. I don't know why I struggled there. Basically, I think the thing is, right, with this point, right, the punishment and they were the strongest, they need all the power they can get to fight the one-eyed black dragon. Well, the thing is, the members aren't gone away. They're not just gonna disappear into thin air. At least I hope not. They're very significant characters, and especially they're not nameless, right? And when we've seen named characters in Danmachi where they've abandoned their familiars, Daphne, Cassandra, Aisha, Samira, Lena, we've generally known where they've gone to, right? I do believe that's going to be the same thing here. We'll generally know where they've gone to. I expect some of them to go to like the Ganesha Familia, some of them to go to Hermes potentially, some of them to go to Hestia potentially, right? Maybe Loki even, who knows? So I don't think we're going to not see them anymore, and they're definitely going to fight against the one-eyed black dragon, but I can understand also people's perspective of like, it's bad that they disbanded a Familia entirely, you know, and especially the strongest Familia in Orario. So there is that factor as well. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. All right, this is gonna be more so stuff regarding if Horn joins Familia. That could help. Bell's new skill could work if Horn joins the Familia, right? So yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. The translation novels, we don't know when they'll come out. We'll have to just wait and watch. Yeah, Yen Press will have to decide when that happens, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting. So let's see. I despise the fact that Ryu still proposes to Belle even if she knows that Belle has feelings for someone else. And I hate the ending with the Freya Familia. The plot armor is way too stupid. That's Omori Sensei in a nutshell with the plot armor. In terms of despising Ryu proposing to Belle, I understand that, you know, as somebody who doesn't mind anybody getting with Belle, to be quite honest. I love all the female characters in Danmachi. I think that's one thing I actually don't mind at all disclosing. I don't actually mind any of the females in Danmachi outside of like Freen and maybe Ishtar and stuff like that. But most of the female characters in Danmachi are very likable, right? So obviously it's kind of hard to see, you know, when Ryu is confessing to Belle and then it's going to be ignored, kind of like Hinata in Naruto. It kind of reminds me like that. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see for sure. We'll have to wait and see. So yeah, it doesn't seem like there's anything else here. A lot of the same things regarding, like, you know, they're not sure about the Freya Familia being disbanded. You know, Omori Sensei really needs to stop playing Memoria Freeze, you know, with the double level up and stuff, right? It's weird. But yeah, let's see how it goes for sure, right? I'm very curious to see what people think about this novel now, especially now that we know there's more details and stuff like that. I want to look at the community post that I made yesterday and see if there's any differences here. 86% said that the volume was good. 12% thought it was meh. 2% thought it was bad. It's understandable. Someone maybe disagrees with me about Ryu's level up, but I think Omori Sensei just showed us a new possibility. True, in the first few LNs it was mentioned that Falna worked as a soul container. Again, it's something I hope they describe a little bit more, and something that we can see being described a little bit more, maybe in either volume 18 itself or volume 19. But yeah, it's gonna be very interesting to say the least. I'm happy with some of the comments that you guys have dropped. It's very interesting, some of your thought processes and stuff. Hopefully I could help you guys get a bit of a better understanding on some of the things that was mentioned. This video ended up becoming 40 minutes anyways. I was hoping it would be like 25-30 minutes long, but it's a 40-minute long video. And yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up there, I think. Let me know what you guys thought of the light novel if you haven't already responded in this video, or you know, this video that I made with my early initial thoughts. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys thought of the light novel, the new information that we have gotten as well, of course, through this you know, through the wiki and stuff like that. Let me know what you guys think. Of course, I'm going to be doing more light novel content in the future, so if there's any other topics you want me to talk about, right, let me know in the comments. I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say down below. Now, once again, appreciate all of y'all for watching this video. Please be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Bye bye.